Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. We're going to talk about UFC Vancouver, go through each fight individually as usual. First recap as usual on last week. Bad week, I'm going to hide from it. Members lost 5 units on pre-bets. There was no live betting last week. I was away, so I couldn't provide the live betting service. So no live betting last week. We'll be back this week with live betting. There's boxing and UFC live betting, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, we had a couple of pre-bets, both lost. Andrew Lee, we had a unit on. I've still not even seen that fight. And we lost 4 units on Teixeira. I try and apply the strategy win or learn, and there's definitely a lot to learn from that Teixeira loss. In hindsight, I shouldn't have bet him at minus 250. There was some question marks that I ignored. I thought Tyson's timing on the counters was just too good and he had too much power, but there was some stuff I overlooked. So I'm going to make some adjustments, especially when I'm paying minus 250 kind of juice. And we'll evolve, learn and move on from that. So we can only move on. Members who bet £100 or $100 per unit are still £9,600 or $9,600 in profit for the year. So we've got best part of 4 months to go. Let's finish the year strong. Still a third of the year left, and really ramp up that profit and finish nice and strong to end the year. So we're going to go on to UFC Vancouver. We're going to start from bottom to top as always, and have a look at each fight individually and the betting lines. As I always say, this is more a betting podcast. There's a lot of MMA podcasts out there now where people give breakdowns on fights, so just to make it different, I like to apply more of a betting spin to each fight. So let's have a look through it and see what we can come up with. First up, we've got Kyle Prepelic from Canada, so he's fighting at home here, taking on Austin Hubbard. Haven't done a great deal of tape on this one. I taped both these guys before their UFC debut, so I've got a rough idea on them. Prepelic lost a one-sided decision to Nordin Taleb, fighting up at welterweight. He was a lightweight, and Austin Hubbard had a big ask on his UFC debut against Davey Amos. He gave a good show of himself in that fight. He just couldn't stop the takedowns from Davey. His grappling's just way too much. So this is an interesting fight. Line's coming a lot. Hubbard was up at, I think I saw him, let's have a look, he was minus 230. It's come all the way down there to minus 135. So I think the value on Prepelic has gone. It's not far short of a pick-em fight now, so it's hard for me to find value on either guy. I think this is going to be a close fight. I definitely think it's going to see the scorecards. The last time I looked to go to a decision was a minus 250. It's still kind of held there. It's minus 260. Now I wouldn't go huge because I don't have a massive read on either guy where they're fairly new to the UFC, and it's always hard to gauge someone when they're facing opposition you're not familiar with outside of the UFC, because you don't know how good or bad that opposition is. But I'm pretty certain this fight's going to go to a decision. Austin Hubbard doesn't really have much power. I remember that from taping him last time. Trains at Team Elevation, so his cardio is good. He showed that against Davey Amos, but he's not the biggest puncher. And Kyle Prepelic, he's never been KO'd, so I'd be surprised if Hubbard was able to stop Prepelic. And I mean, Prepelic's got a few KOs on his record, but I think Hubbard's a pretty durable guy, and I mean, you look at who he's KO'd Prepelic, and it's quite poor regional level fighters. Hubbard has never been KO'd either, and I don't really see this fight being much of a submission affair. So yeah, I think if there's any value left on this fight for me, it's to go the distance. If you're looking for a parlay piece, perhaps you've got something in mind and you want a leg to play it with, I think goes the distance isn't a bad bet, albeit I wouldn't go massive. I wouldn't go more than a unit, or even if you're happy to play it straight, minus 250. I think this fight sees the scorecards more often than not. Maybe there's not a great deal of value on the minus 250, but it's the only thing I can come up with for that fight. I'm not kind of keen on that. The money lines have adjusted, not particularly keen, but I think anyone who got on Prepelic when he was up at I think it's around plus 175, plus 170. You definitely got value there. So good luck if you are on prep leg at those odds. Next, we've got Louis Smolka taking on Ryan McDonald, men's 135 division. Smolka's a minus 225 favourite here, so I missed the early line on him when he was sitting at around minus. I think I saw him at like minus 130, but I just couldn't get that line. It was too early for me. I feel I've got a decent read on Smolka. I've bet him a few times throughout his UFC career. I bet him all the way back when he fought Richie Vasilek. I remember he sat there, the Australian chap. Long time ago that was, and it was an awful sweat. He was 2 rounds down going into round 3, and he pulled out, if anyone's familiar with WWF, or WWE as it's now called, pulled out sweet chin music in round 3 to knock Vasiluk out. I also bet him over Neil Seery. No, I didn't bet him over Neil Seery. I bet him over Paddy Holohan, which went kind of exactly how I thought it would. I remember I got him like pick a mods for that fight. And then I faded him against Ray Borg and Tim Elliott, 2 very strong grapplers. So I've done well betting for or against him. I'm 4-0. Look, I think he beats Ryan McDonald, but I just can't bet Louis Smolka at minus 225. I just can't trust him. He seems to have turned himself around. I know he had a drink problem previously, and his commitment to training was questioned. He's actually moved to California. He trains at Team Oyama now. He had a decent win now. We saw how good Sue Madaji looked in his last fight. So, I mean, maybe he was a bit rawer then, but still, that was a decent win for Smolka. And he's coming off that quick loss to Matt Schnell. So he needs a win here. If he loses, he's probably going to get cut. So I know it's going to mean a lot to Smolka because I think he relocated for the training purposes from the looks of it. Ryan McDonald isn't great. Regional level fighter. I just found it hard from tape just to get a read on what his kind of takedown defence is like, because Louis Smolka is probably going to be looking to take him down. I'm not really sure how this looks if it plays out on the feet, so that's why I just can't pay the juice on Smolka, and he's just hard for me to trust. But I mean, Ryan got outclassed against Chris Gutierrez, who is a solid striker, but you know, he didn't look like he belonged in there against Chris Gutierrez. I watched his fight with Matt Murphy. I saw his fight with. I did see the Trevor Ward fight as well, actually, but the Matt Murphy fight was concerning. It is about 18 months ago, but he was probably 2-1 down going into round 4 until Matt Murphy quit, and he didn't look great from bottom position in that fight against a real journeyman. So, you know, has he made significant enough improvements in that time? I don't know. He's young. He's 26. Didn't see his grappling game against Gutierrez. I did watch a Trevor Ward fight. I can't remember it too well. I must have watched it a good week or so ago, and I've done so much tape since. But yeah, I mean, I picked Louis Smolka here, but I just can't personally trust him at minus 225. Wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a close fight, a scrambly affair. But yeah, Ryan McDonald doesn't look UFC quality, and Louis, you know, he's kind of lower end UFC quality, but he's won in the UFC. That performance against Ben 10 was a great performance a few years back. And I mean, he's at 135 here. I think he is probably more suited to 125. He's quite tall for 125, but he just looks a little bit soft at 135. But they probably get away with it here. So I will go with Smolka to win, but I personally can't find value on him. But at the same time, I'm not tempted to play Ryan McDonald at plus 185. Chaz Skelly, Jordan Griffin next. Jordan Griffin is a minus 140 favourite now. I think anyone that got him when he was the underdog or around evens, good value. Chaz Skelly, for me, he might be on a decline there. He's nearly 35. He's been pretty inactive the last couple of years. He didn't look great against Jason Knight, and he's coming off that controversial loss to Bobby Moffett. He had a strong first round. Skelly's problem's always been his cardio. He always slows down after round 1. I can't see that changing at his age. I think it's a physiological problem with him as well. I don't think it's necessarily a case that he's not in shape and so forth, but it's always suffered a cardio problem. Now Jordan Griffin sets a hellacious pace and he can go hard for 3 rounds. We saw that against Dan Ige. He nearly won that fight, really, really close. It was 1-1 going into round 3. He nearly got on top of Ige. I think it was like midway through round 3. If he could have kept top position like he did for round 2, he would have won the fight. It was a very competitive fight. So yeah, he's definitely got a solid gas tank, but he can be taken down, Griffin. Now he does scramble well to get back to his feet, but he does give his back up, which Skelly will happily take. He also tends to shoot for takedowns needlessly, and his shots are really bad. He kind of leaves his neck in jeopardy. So I think I don't think this fight's live bettable because it's on it's on Fight Pass, which is a real shame because I'd definitely be looking for Skelly to slow down here after round 1. I can definitely see him having a solid round 1, winning round 1, and then Jordan Griffin coming on with his pressure. I'm not seeing. I can't pull the trigger at -140 on Griffin personally, just because there are some question marks about his fight IQ. He does give his back up. He does scramble well though, as I said, and his cardio is good, and he does push a high pace, and he will fight for your money. But the line's just a bit high for me to play him now, unfortunately. But I'm going to pick Griffin here to win this fight. But I do expect round 1 to be sweaty if you are on Griffin. But it will be an interesting fight to watch, and it'll give us an idea as to what Skelly's got left as well, because the injuries, he's not fought for a while, he's getting up there in age. I think he might be on a decline, Skelly, but I'm going to pick Griffin here. Next, Brad Katona, Hunter Azori. I'm going to go with the underdog here, Hunter Azori at +145. I think there's a bit of value on him. His stand-up isn't great, but he's aggressive. He's got good calf kicks. He's also got a 6-inch reach advantage over Brad Katona, who's got real T-Rex arms. I think Brad is the better technical boxer, but pressure from Azori, the calf kicks, I think he can land on Katona. Katona was getting outstruck in round 1 by Matthew Lopez, who had a good reach advantage on him, but Lopez ultimately gassed, as he always does. I don't see Azori gassing here. He's also got a strong wrestling. Katona's takedown defence isn't great, as we've seen. If you watch The Ultimate Fighter, if you watch his fight with Merab, he got taken down by Lopez as well, but he does have very good jiu-jitsu, Katona. He's good at getting back to his feet. Couldn't get back to his feet against Merab. He was completely grounded in that fight, which I bet Merab in that fight, but that was my concern, whether Merab could keep him down. But Merab was even winning the stand-up, just with that aggressive style with his. And Azori, I don't think he's as good as Merab, and he definitely doesn't set that kind of pressure, because no one really does. But he is kind of a similar fight. He is a similar fighter in a way, in that he is aggressive. Stand up isn't great technically, but he's aggressive with it. He's got solid wrestling. He's got those good low calf kicks as well. I don't see him being able to keep Brad down, but it's just the threat of the takedown. It just throws your stand up off, and it's going to keep Brad guessing. So, but I don't want to underrate Brad either. He is a solid fighter. He's got good technical boxing, but I mean, I was really surprised when I saw I didn't realise he had such T-Rex arms, but the 6-inch reach advantage, even though Hunter probably can't use it that well, it's still big here, because Katona's going to have to come in to land, and I just think Azuri comes from MMA Lab as well, and he's a typical MMA Lab fighter, just one of these gritty type of guys. So, I mean, I'm not massively confident, because I don't feel I've got a great read on Hunter yet. I'm going off of his Dana White Contender Series fight, and then his fight before, I think it was in LFA, and he did get dropped a couple of times in that LFA fight in round 1 against not the best opposition, so he can be hit. But I'm just relying on his pace here. I mean, I'm playing the odds as well, guys. It's a betting podcast. I think there's value on him at +145. If it was a pick'em, I probably wouldn't be recommending a bet, but I do see some value on that line for Hunter. But it's his UFC debut. I'm going to get to really see what he's about. Fight to go to a decision. There's -250. I'd see this fight going to a decision, but for me here, if you're going to bet this fight, I think the value is on on Hunter Azuri to win here, just through grit, determination, volume, mixing up the striking and wrestling. I think it's going to be a close fight, whatever happens, but I think the value's with Hunter, so I'm going to pick Hunter here. Unfortunately, Andrew Sanchez, Marvin Vettori fight is off, so we're not going to go over that fight. We've got Cole Smith, Miles John next. For me, I saw a lot of people really confident on Twitter with Miles John here, but I done tape and I'm just not seeing it personally. I didn't think he looked great on the Contender Series. Now, I know it's a bit of a anomaly like the Ultimate Fighter. With the Contender Series, there's pressure to finish, to be entertaining. So maybe you do stuff that you wouldn't do in normal conditions. But I watched his fight before the Contender Series on LFA, the 5-round fight, I think with Yanez. I wasn't overly impressed there with him either. I mean, he's a good athlete, he's got decent wrestling, he's got some decent power in his hands. But Cole Smith's it's a bit of a nightmare. I watched his fight before his UFC debut and he kind of pulled it. Now, he's not at the level of Colby Covington with his wrestling, but he basically pulled that kind of style for 5 rounds, just lots of fence grinding, hitting takedowns, and he didn't slow one iota. And exactly the same against Mitch Gagnon, just in his face, grinding him. He's really big for the weight, real big 135er, can set a hellacious pace. His stand-up isn't great. I think Miles John will have the advantage on the feet. And he did get rocked by Gagnon as well, so how sturdy is Cole Smith's chin, I don't know. But I just think he's a gritty guy, big, just a type of fighter that I don't like betting against. And I know it was a Contender Series, but John slowed down on that fight, and the guy he was fighting wasn't high caliber. I remember capping that fight and I was not impressed with his opponent. His opponent was kind of tough, and he'd stay in there, but he was well outmatched. And Cole Smith's, I can see him having some success in here with his wrestling and his grinding style. He's good at getting on your back. So I definitely don't really see the value in Miles Johns personally. If anything, I'd take Cole Smith here. Nah, I don't trust my read on this fight 100%, because as I've already said, I find it hard to fully gauge people when they've only fought on the regional scene against poor opposition, because you don't know how good or bad that opposition is they've been facing. We've seen Cole against Mitch Gagnon, who's a decent enough fighter. He's had a lot of injuries and had a long layoff, but it was an impressive enough performance. He totally dominated that fight. The only point he was in trouble was when he got dropped in round 3, but otherwise he was in total control of the fight. So that kind of means more to me than any of Miles Johns' wins. And as I said, I wasn't overly impressed with the Contender Series performance, and his fight before in LFA, the 5-rounder, I wasn't overly impressed with that either. So I'm going to pick Cole Smith here to win this. Not seeing the Miles Johns faith that I said I've seen on Twitter, but maybe I'm wrong. He gets a step up in competition here. He gets into the UFC, trains at Fortis, he's at a good camp. Maybe he'll show what others are seeing, but I'm not personally seeing it, and I definitely see this being a close fight. So for me, Cole Smith, I think if you want to bet the fight, I think the value is with Cole Smith personally, albeit there isn't a great deal of value, because I see this as a pick and fight and he's plus 110, so not massive amounts of value for me personally, but I'm going to pick Cole Smith here. Heavyweight next, Augusto Sakai taking on Marcin Tybura. Sakai, I bet against him in Bellator when he fought Czech Congo. Czech Congo won by just cage grinding him basically. He struggled to get the takedowns in that fight. In the UFC, I think he's looked great. I remember live betting Chase Sherman after round 1. And then Sherman just gassed in round 2, and it allowed Sakai to take over and ultimately get a stoppage in round 3. And then he lost that fight to Arlovski for me. I haven't gone back and re-watched it, but I remember live betting Arlovski and being shocked that it didn't cash. So, I mean, he seems tough. He doesn't seem to have the biggest power. He's got solid enough takedown defence, but it's a bit of a lumbering heavyweight. But Marcin Tybura, I just don't know where Marcin is at. I think his chin might be gone. He's coming off a knockout loss to Shamil, which isn't a great look. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis. The fight he was winning, he was 2 rounds up. He had his grappling going, knocked out in round 3 there. And even the Stefan Struve fight, which he won, he got hurt in that fight at one point as well. And I mean, he tends to win his fights by utilising his grappling, which I was really surprised in the Shamil fight. He just didn't go for a takedown. I think he's going to struggle to get Augusto Sakai down. I think this is going to be on the feet. And I just don't know, he might be on a bit of a decline, Tybura, and I'm definitely questioning his chin as well now. Sakai isn't the biggest puncher, but neither is Shamil. So I have to go Sakai here. He's the dog. It's low level heavyweight, guys. You know I don't like betting on that kind of stuff. And Sakai doesn't give me loads of confidence, especially when I talk about him losing to Sherman until he gassed. He lost to Orlovsky, so I definitely wouldn't go big on it, but I think the values with Sakai, I don't think he should be the underdog. He should be a slight favourite for me. So Sakai to either get a late stoppage or to win a decision here. Move to the main card now. We've got Misha Cirkunov taking on Jimmy Crute. I can't bet Cirkunov here, especially when you look at the current line is... We've got... I mean, Cirkunov's the favourite now. Yeah, I can't touch that. Cirkunov's burnt me in the past. He cost me a lot of money against Vulcan. I had him to close. It was a couple of parlays he was closing. Would have won me a lot of money, and oh man, I'll never forget that. The bizarre knockout. Then he kind of quit against Glover when he got stuck on the bottom. And then Johnny Walker just wrecked him. I mean, I don't know where he's at. His chin might be done. I know he's got some... I know his wife's not well. I think she's got breast cancer. I know he had that during the Johnny Walker camp. I'm not sure what the situation is now. I mean, hopefully she's in remission and so forth. But, I mean, who knows where your head's at. Especially because he trains in America and they live over in Canada. And I did have a look at his Instagram. He has been over at Extreme Couture. I just don't know how that dynamic plays out. But yeah, I just can't trust him. Been KO'd in 3 of his last 4 fights. And, I mean... the Vulcan and Johnny Walker KOs were pretty bad as well, and I just didn't like how he just seemed to like quit when Glover got on top. The Jim Crute, Australian guy, raw, but he's only 23. Beat Paul Craig, was 1-1 going into round 3. Paul Craig was able to take him down. He's coming off a quick knockout over Sam Alvey. The Paul Craig fight it's getting on for a year ago now. He's only young. His grappling game could have improved. It's a real hard fight, this one, because I don't want to write off Jim Crute. You can see that he is improving if you look at his Contender Series fight to the Sam Alvey fight. There's definitely improvements being made. I mean, I think Cirkunov is decent, but I just don't trust his chin, and I just don't know where he's at mentally. I'll go Crute here. It's not a confident pick. I'm not recommending a play on it. I'm just putting the pick out. I don't think there's really any value on the current line, guys. I probably think it is about a pick 'em fight. Fight inside the distance. Oh, minus 350. No value there. I don't really see any value on this fight, guys. I'm going to pick Crute just because I'm fading Cirkunov's chin. I just don't know where he's at. Crute's a young guy improving. To me, probably wants it more. As I said, just didn't like how Cirkunov seemed to just quit against Glover. So I'll go with Crute, but I'm not confident with that pick. Next up, we've got Antônio Carlos Jr. taking on Uriah Hall. Carlos Jr. is coming off a loss to Ian Heinisch, where he basically got out scrambled. He started to slow down a little bit, and I mean, it was very close. Heinisch just managed to get on top with I think it was like a minute and a half remaining in round 3 just to cement it. Yeah, scramble heavy fight. We've seen Carlos slow down before. He slowed down against Daniel Kelly. He seems to struggle if someone can set a high pace, which Ian Heinisch did. Daniel Kelly set a high pace. I mean, he had Heinisch and Dan Kelly dominated them in round 1. Couldn't get the finish, and then ultimately just ended up slowing down, and he actually got stopped by Daniel Kelly in round 3 eventually. And Ian Heinisch, as I said, it was close going in, even like midway through round 3, and there was a point where I think Carlos Jr. got on top with it's about 2.5 minutes left, and you thought, oh, that's it, the round's done. But he scrambled back to his feet and ended up getting back on top. Because I remember I live betted him, real good price after, I think it might have been after round 1, and I remember thinking, like, oh, we're done here, he's on top in round 3, but yeah, he got up and got back on top. So he tends to struggle in higher paced fights against guys that are scrambling. Daniel Kelly, for all the stick he gets, is an Olympian in judoka, tough guy to take down, good grappling. That's where he tends to struggle. When his stand-up isn't the best, it's a means to an end. It's a means to get the fight to the floor, basically. But he seems to have a sturdy chin, Junior. I've never seen him hurt. I remember him trading with De Lima on the Ultimate Fighter, and that was up at heavyweight. Ultimately got De Lima down and subbed him. But he's a bit more refined now. He's at the American top team. But yeah, his stand-up isn't great. It's there to crush the distance and get fights to the floor where he excels. Excellent grappler. And we have seen him win fights in round 3 as well. I don't want to just write him off as a kind of round 1 or bust kind of guy. We saw him go, just looking at his wins, I mean, he beat Miranda over for a decision. He choked Eddie Jordan in round 3. He choked Leonardo Gameras in round 3, and he got a gritty win over Marvin Vettori, 1-1 going into round 3. Came out and just cage grinded and mixed in takedowns on Vettori in round 3. So, you've got to set a real high pace to slow him down. I don't think Uriah Hall's the man. It's not his style. He fights on the outside, kind of more of a counter game. I don't really see Carlos Jr. slowing down in this fight. It's interesting, Uriah Hall's done his camp at Fortis here for the first time, which is a great camp. So it'd be interesting to see how he looks here. But I mean, for Uriah, he's a bit of a head case. I don't think he's in love with actually fighting. I think he's a martial artist and a solid martial artist, but I don't think he's in love with the actual the kind of fight business. He's coming off a win over Bevan Lewis, where he was easily 2 rounds down, pulled a KO kind of out of nowhere. Same with the Jotko fight, he was getting absolutely hammered in that. Jotko kind of punched himself out though, and he managed to put Jotko away. So Hall is dangerous, always has been, very explosive guy. But when I look at the tape, like you look at the two Masasi fights, Masasi got easy takedowns. First fight dominated him for 5 minutes from top position. Second fight, instant finish, had the arm trapped, pounded him out. Uriah just seemed to quit. And then Jotko did kind of have him hurt on the feet, but I mean, Jotko got him down and dominated him on the mat as well. Had mount, nearly had a rear naked choke, sunk in, Hall done well to defend it. I think Masasi in the first fight nearly had a rear naked choke, sunk in as well. Uriah Hall done well to get out of that. I think Carlos Jr., he goes to your back. I think if he gets anywhere near that neck, you're not escaping. So I think stylistically this is a tough fight for Uriah Hall. I just don't think he's really got that style that is going to exploit Carlos's weaknesses. Carlos has got really good takedowns, and he can cage grind if need be as well if he's struggling with a takedown. We saw that against Vettori. I just don't see why he struggles to get the takedowns here. I mean, Uriah's always got that puncher's chance. It's a higher ratio percentage-wise puncher's chance than your average puncher's chance. We've seen that in 2 of his last 3 fights, from losing positions, pulling out the wins, and we saw it in the first Masasi fight, dominated round 1 and then pulled out that KO in round 2. So, interesting fight. As I said, Uriah at Fortis, but I just think stylistically it's a tough fight for him. Carlos Jr. was sitting around minus 160 for a considerable amount of time. I thought there was some good value on Carlos Jr. there. The line's been bet up as I expected. I capped Carlos Jr. minus 250. That's where the line is at now, so I think it's pretty accurate. So the value's kind of gone, but I think anyone that got in on that minus 160, I think that was a really solid line. And I do expect Carlos Jr. to win this fight. Uriah Hall's never been submitted. I've seen some people that are on Hall saying, oh, he's never been submitted, but he's never faced a BJJ guy. He faced Rafael Natal, but Carlos Jr. is a better fighter than Rafael Natal, a better grappler than Rafael Natal, and Natal couldn't get that fight to the floor either. Carlos Jr. is going to get this fight to the floor. So it's whether Uriah Hall can defend, and if he can get the fight into round 3, could get nervy for Carlos Jr. backers, but I mean, if Carlos Jr.'s had 2 rounds of pretty much grappling, then I don't see him slowing down. He's comfortable in that world. It's if you push that pace, really make him scramble, get back to your feet. And from what I've seen from Hall when he's on the bottom, I haven't seen that. So I'm going to go with Carlos Jr. to get a submission or a pretty comfortable decision victory here. I'm not sure where Michel Pereira is fitting on this card. I'm just going to look at this fight next. Not that I've done any tape. He's got a real late replacement, Tristan Connelly. Pereira was meant to be facing the Russian guy, I can't remember his name, who we saw a few months back, but he's got a Canadian now, lightweight guy, who's coming in on literally a few days notice, moving up to welterweight. From what I could see, he seems to be a grappling guy. The line on Pereira is minus 500, which is kind of where I expected it to be. He looked real good in his UFC debut, but I watched his fight against Dusko when I was capping Contender Series, and I mean that was back in November, I think, and Dusko is very good, don't get me wrong, but didn't look nearly the same fighter as we saw against the British guy, I can't remember his name. But yeah, I mean, you've got to go with Pereira here, but I've done zero tape, and I'm not playing him at minus 500. I don't think there's any recent tape on Connelly either. The line I would be interested in is Pereira. Oh, they're out. I was going to say Pereira inside the distance. Pereira wins inside the distance, minus 190. That's probably got some value, but I mean, going from his UFC debut, it's got value to fight against Roberts. But I've not seen Connelly. I've not done the tape. But a lightweight moving up to welterweight on very short notice against explosive guy like Pereira, it seems like a solid bet. But I'd have to do a bit more tape. But if you guys are looking into that fight, I'd be looking at Pereira inside the distance when you're taping it. But yeah, I'm going to pick Pereira. But as I said, I've done no tape, so you have to do your own tape on that one. Don't take my word for it. Jeff Hughes, Todd Duffee. You guys know my thoughts on low-level heavyweight fights, and this one I just don't think you can touch it, guys, at all. Todd Duffee had a lot of hype years back, but he's had some major injury problems. I think he's had a gambling issue as well. He's not fought in over 4 years, coming off a loss in that fight, knocked out by Frank Mir. He's not been past round 1 for over 9 years. I mean, so many question marks. Jeff Hughes, bit of a grinder, which kind of puts me off looking at the inside the distance fight. Inside the distance, I mean, I'm sure it does end inside the distance, but Hughes isn't your typical heavyweight with heavy power and so forth. You know, he's got a few round 5 decision wins, so it's just a past fight, guys. I mean, he didn't look great against Maurice Green. Jeff Hughes, where is Todd Duffee at? It's just a complete crapshoot. Just do not touch that fight. It's pick 'em odds, I think. Jeff Hughes slight favourite. Yeah, just stay away, guys. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 300. But yeah, I wouldn't go near it. Hughes by decision plus 350. Look, if you're a complete Deegan, maybe that's got a bit of value, but just avoid it, guys. Avoid that fight, please. Glover Texeira taking on Nikita Krylov. Light heavyweight fight. Really looking forward to this one. I've had a few discussions with people on Twitter about this fight because I've said it's as simple as Glover gets him to the floor, he wins. Krylov keeps it standing, he wins. And normally fights aren't as kind of cut and dry for me, but I think that is basically how this fight plays out. Now, we've seen Glover fighting to his strengths lately. Carl Robertson, Kutalaba, Cirkunov, Jared Cannonier, taken them down, either smashed them on the floor or just he smashed all of them except for Cannonier, where he managed to win the decision. He's got losses sandwiched in between. Gustafsson, a tough stylistic fight for him, because Gustafsson's always had really good takedown defence. Tough guy to take down, and that was a couple of years ago as well. Gus seems to have faded since that fight. And then Corey, a tough fight stylistically for him. Corey pretty much grinded him out in that fight. Glover's definitely looking slower on the feet. He's definitely getting hit more. He's still tough though. He's getting rocked, but it took a Kutalaba spinning back fist, and even then Glover didn't seem that hurt. He went to his back, I think, just to regain his senses, but he recovered well. He recovered from Carl's elbows. He's still tough. I mean, he's been put away. I mean, Anthony Johnson, but that guy's just, it's a complete different level of power that guy's got. And Gustafsson took him out in round 5, but it was more of a kind of methodical beatdown across the 5 rounds. It just wore him down. But I mean, you look at who he's lost to besides very early in his career. You're talking John Jones, Phil Davis, Anthony Johnson, Corey Anderson, Alex Gustafsson. Now there's a trend there, all top fighters and all of them really solid wrestlers. None of them you would pick Glover to be able to take down and do what he's done to Kutalaba, Robertson, Cirkunov, Cannonier. It's kind of just tough stylistic fights for him. Welcome Nikita Krylov, who for me falls into the category of your Robertsons, Kutalabas, Cirkunovs, Jared Cannoniers. Then Nikita's got really good stand-up, but for me he's just not evolved since his first UFC run. I mean, I was excited when he came back, and then first fight back against Blachowicz, just same thing. Just like he took Yan down. Like, what are you doing? Took him down. Yan ended up scrambling back to his feet. As he's scrambling back to his feet, he's gone for a fucking guillotine on Yan. So he just put himself on his back. Like, Yan, easy takedown for Yan. Just took the single leg. Finished the round on top. Then round 2, Yan just pulls him down, gets on top and chokes him out. OSP's on a big decline, guys. And I mean, OSP had success in round 1. I mean, he beat him in the first fight with the Von Flew. He probably thought he was going to get an easy submission win again. He wrestled Yan in round 1, but Yan kept getting back to his feet. Takedowns kept coming against the cage, and it just wore OSP out. And Yan, he actually took OSP down in round 2, and he got the finish. But it's just the guy's just got dodgy fight IQ. I don't like him on the bottom. He's not good on the bottom. Like the Yan fight, he just got dominated from the bottom. I mean, OSP took Mount at one point in round 1. He managed to buck him off, but Glover gets on top of you, the fight is probably over. Now, Krylov's never been to a decision. It's a crazy stat. He's had 31 fights, never seen a decision. He's kill or be killed. Now, look, he has a chance on the feet, but like I said, Glover's tough, and I don't think Krylov's. I don't think he's the biggie. I don't see him knocking Glover out of a punch. I think it's more what concerns me would be him getting caught by like a head kick, something like that, something more low percentage. And I definitely think, look, if it stays on the feet, Krylov wins this fight. But I definitely think the discrepancy is bigger on the floor. I think if it hits the floor, I only see absolutely one outcome, and that's Krylov getting finished or dominated. On the feet, yeah, Krylov will win on the feet, but Glover's still got power on the feet. He can catch you. So I do think it's more lopsided on the mat, and I don't see why Glover can't get Krylov down to the mat. It's currently at Pick'em. It is a hard fight to be confident in because Glover is up there in age, but I just think stylistically it's a decent fight for him. So I wouldn't go crazy, but I will pick Glover here. Fight not to go to a decision was sitting at minus 300 for a while. I thought that had value, but it's skyrocketed it now. It's like minus 500, so I'd avoid it. But when it was minus 300, I thought that was bettable. If you was looking for a parlay piece, I thought it was a decent parlay piece. But as I said, that line's well gone. But yeah, I do lean Glover here. I think he does get Krylov down, and it might only need or take one takedown. And then, I mean, if the fight does go deep as well, has Krylov's cardio going to hold up, especially if he's been getting wrestled and had Glover on top of him and he does survive? Is he going to slow down? Because as I said, this guy, look at his record. He's seen round 2, 3, 4. He's seen round 2 his last 3 fights actually. So look, I can't fault a play either side here because I see a path to victory for both guys, but I just think if we look at Krylov and how he's kind of lost fights in the past and how he's looked in his second UFC run, I think stylistically it's a winnable fight for Glover, but there are obviously concerns. He is slowing down, he's getting old, the wheels could come off at any point. But Krylov, all of his losses bar one is 5 submission losses. I just think it's, and we've seen from these recent fights, can still be taken down. He's still not great from the bottom. I think he's in trouble if this fight hits the mat. But I can see an argument either side. It's definitely not an overly confident pick, but I'm going to pick Glover. And finally, we've got Donald Cerrone taking on Justin Gaethje. Great main event. Real violent main event. I mean, whenever you've got Gaethje, you're going to get violence. This is an interesting fight for me. I think if Gaethje puts it on Cerrone, he will put it on Cerrone in round 1, there's obviously a strong chance he can get Cerrone out of there. Now, Cerrone's always been a bit of a slow starter. So Gaethje's going to come strong round 1. I'm just trying to think, in terms of head punches, how many times has Cerrone been KO'd? I mean, you've had the Darren Till one. Jorge Masvidal as well, so he has had a couple recently. I mean, you had the RDA one kind of years ago, but that was a bit weird. It just seemed like, I mean, he wasn't knocked out or anything. I think he just seemed a bit stunned, and Rafael just kept on him, and the ref ultimately stepped in. I mean, he was definitely hurt, but he just wasn't out or anything. Because besides that, he's not really. But those, I mean, he's never really been taken out with head strikes besides the Darren Till and Masvidal fights, but they are, fairly recent. So perhaps the chin is going a bit. So Gaethje can, if Masvidal can put you down with punches. I mean, Till's a massive welterweight now, moving up to middleweight. So there's kind of, I don't want to read too much into that, but Masvidal did put him away with punches. So Gaethje can. I mean, he does. Let's not kid. He cracks. But I think this fight gets really interesting the longer it goes, because Gaethje does slow down. Now, I know he sets a hellacious pace and it slows his opponents down, but I don't ever remember Donald Cerrone slowing down. He's a big part of gassing guys is when someone sets a hellacious pace and it just makes you kind of tense up because they're throwing high volume. You're tensing up from the shots. Donald Cerrone is extremely comfortable in there. He's seen everything there is to see. I don't really see him slowing down, even from the pace that Gaethje's going to set. I think if anyone slows in this fight, it's Gaethje. And we've seen it numerous times pre-UFC, and we've seen it in the UFC, and he's suffered some late losses in the UFC because of it. Now, he has got evil low kicks, which he's going to try and exploit on Cowboy, no doubt. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic, because I don't really ever remember seeing Cowboy jeopardised with low kicks. So this fight definitely favours Gaethje early, but I'll definitely be having my finger ready on live bet if Cowboy can survive the early onslaught and take this fight into the trenches. But the other problem I've got with Cowboy is he's 36 now. He's had 50 fights. He's had a lot of tough fights. Like with Glover, I just think the wheels are going to fall off Cerrone at some point. And I mean, he moved up to welterweight because he was struggling to make the 155 limit. Now that cut is not getting any easier for him as he gets older. So how much is the cut taken out of him as well? He's a quick turnaround again. I mean, it's his full fight of 2019, and every fight's been a tough fight. Let's not pretend it. I mean, I know he got the win over Hernandez, but Hernandez still brawled the fight. Uriah Quinta still landed a fair number of significant shots, and then the Ferguson fight, his face was a mess. So I'm going to go with Gaethje here to get the early KO, just because I just think this accumulation has to catch up with Cowboy at some point. I remember we all wrote him off a few years ago, and then he rebounded. He had them 3 straight losses. Well, he lost 3 of 4, but then he's rebounded. But I just think he's got a big puncher here. He hasn't faced a puncher like this since. Well, he had the Mike Perry fight, but he never really faced adversity in that fight. He got that fight to the floor, but he's not faced a puncher like this since the Darren Till fight, really. And I'd say Gaethje is, he's probably the biggest puncher he's ever faced outside of Darren Till, who you assume hits harder being so much bigger, but Gaethje just cracks. So I'm going to go with Gaethje. I think he'd get the early KO. But if it goes late, guys, it gets really interesting. We saw him suffer the round 3 and round 4 losses. against Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. Albeit those two are more comfortable in the pocket trading than Cerrone is. But Cerrone is Gaethje uses that high guard. His body's going to be open. He is open to take straight shots, and I've seen him slow down outside of the UFC in fights. Now he's always managed just to outlast the guys, but if it goes late, it's a very interesting fight, and I definitely think it favours Cerrone. But I think Gaethje's going to get the early KO win here, so I'm going to go Gaethje. I'm not overly confident though. I'm not in love with that minus 200 line. I'll be swerving that. I think Gaethje round 1 is currently, let's have a look, plus 300. Well, I think that if you're a prop better, I'm not really a prop better to be honest, and it's tough for me to get money on because I can't bet online. But if you're a prop better, I think that's got a bit of value, because I definitely think that is my favoured outcome for a Gaethje win. Under 1.5 rounds is plus 150. Under 2.5 minus 160. Yeah, I like Gaethje round 1, and then the later the fight goes, Cowboy. I mean, Cowboy decision. I can't see this fight going to a decision. I don't think I'm even going to look at Cowboy decision. But yeah, I'm not overly confident, I must say, especially at that price. But I do favour Gaethje, especially early here. But if you live bet, be ready on live bet. Post round 1, maybe it might be a bit too early to pull the trigger. But it depends how round 1 plays out. But definitely kind of round 3 onwards could get real interesting. But I'm going to go with Gaethje early, but I would not be surprised if Cerrone can survive the onslaught and brings it on. But I'm just expecting a drop off. He's had so many tough fights, it has to catch up with him, and all these quick turnarounds. He's cutting weight again. Only fought a couple of months ago in a tough fight. Took a lot of facial damage, so I have to go Gaethje to get the victory here. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. I think live bet should be good. I'm not in love with this card for betting, but most of the fights are lined pretty closely, so it should be a solid live bet. I'm back for live betting this week. I'm happy to do live betting. If you just want live betting tips for the year, I'm happy to run an offer for the next week or so. I'll do live betting for the year, £150 for the year. Just send me a DM if you're interested on Twitter, or send us an email, info@prommabetting.com. Live betting is back this week. There's all our bets are third-party tracked, including live betting, so you can have a look. You'll see a link below this video to the live betting tracker if you want to have a look. It's on the website as well, prommabetting.com. We're at massive. It's free money. I've said it time and time again on here. It's the easiest money you're ever going to earn. If you have the ability to live bet, do it, guys. It's free money. Even if you're in Europe and you have to stay up all night like me, if you need some extra money, guys, it's free money. If your unit size is like £100, you'd be up over £7,000 from live betting with us this year. It's a lot of money. So live betting's back. Memberships are all on the website. Come and make money with us. We're long-term winners. All our bets are third-party tracked. We're very transparent. All of our bet slips are posted. I like to verify that I'm betting what I'm saying betting, so I post the bet slips to show you. There's a lot of paper traders out there. I'm going to go into it this week, but we'll kind of look at them again next week, about kind of people that you should be careful of paying money for tips. But good luck with your bets, guys, and we'll be back for the UFC in Mexico. And I will warn you, I've capped that card already. There's no odds yet except for the main event, but it's a shitty card for betting. I think it is anyway. I mean, there's a couple of lines I'm waiting to see what they are, but you've got the elevation as well. It's a dodgy card for betting, but the one after looks a lot more promising in Copenhagen. But over and out, good luck, guys.